Hello and welcome to the first in a series of webinars we're running on adapting your sales strategy in the changing world of business. My name is Adam Main and I lead the LinkedIn Sales Solutions business here in Asia. I'm joined today by our Head of New Business Acquisition, Gianna Barbosa, as well as my Head of Customer Relationship, Martin Diepenbach. Today's webinar is tailored for sales leaders, with the aim of sharing tips and resources to help you craft your leadership plan during these unprecedented times. LinkedIn's mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. That's good in normal times, but in today's world, we feel that's never felt more important. We provide 4 distinct corporate solution streams at LinkedIn. The stream I lead, Sales Solutions, is focused on helping B2B sales organizations excel in the world of modern selling. Our flagship platform, Sales Navigator, endeavors to help make sales professionals indispensable partners to buyers. We work with hundreds of sales leaders across Asia, and it's from this vantage point and from our own experience that we wanted to share insights and ideas to help you navigate through these troubled waters. I do want to caveat that we're not a research or consultancy firm. We're just like you. We're sales leaders trying to find our way through this period as best we can. There's no silver bullet, and every organization is different. And by no means do we have all the answers. But given our unique vantage point, managing sales teams, working with sales leaders, and selling a sales productivity and enablement tool, we wanted to share with you our thoughts on managing through this period. So we have 4 tips that we'd like to take you through today. The first is around nurturing your team and keeping them engaged through this period. Secondly, we'll cover reinforcing customer value. Then we'll take a look at securing revenue. And lastly, we'll wrap up with embracing sales technology. First up though is how you nurture and engage your sales team through this period. And this is super critical. We wanted to lead with this one of all of them because we think it's super important that first and foremost, we look after our talent and our people. These are difficult times and each individual is going to be having a challenging time, both personally as well as professionally. I think leading with compassion and leading with empathy is important to making sure we get through this period. And we're starting with a place of empathy and compassion that we start from here. Being transparent with your team. You may not have all the answers, but if you can be as open and honest and transparent with your team as possible, then it's going to help build the trust and strengthen the trust amongst the team. With so much out of control, it's best to try and help your reps focus on what is within their control. This will help empower them and to regain some control in their daily lives. Next is to consider how your schedule of team and one-to-one catch-ups is structured through this period. Make sure it reflects the new realities of working remotely. Combine some informal, non-work related catch-ups with your team, such as morning teas, pizza parties, casual chats, to fill the void of what used to be happening over lunch or coffee. Lastly, it's too often overlooked that we make time to care for others and we don't make enough time to care for ourselves and our own headspace. And that's true also for our frontline managers. I think this is super important. We need to take care of ourselves and those sales managers who are taking a lot of stress on their shoulders from their reps. It's how we show up each day that's going to help empower our reps to continue and carry forward during this period. So making sure we come with the right energy, we inspire our reps and we set a vision for what the future holds after this period is going to be very helpful for getting our reps through as well. So my key takeaways from this section is really just to adapt to virtual. You know, the things that we used to do when we were in the office are not going to be the same and resonate the same as this new working environment. So make sure that your calendar, your catch-ups, everything that you do is adapted well to this new virtual working environment. Next is really focus on what you and your reps can control. There's a lot outside of our control at the moment, so getting empowerment and ownership of what we can control is going to be really helpful. And lastly, mind your line. Take care of your headspace. Not just yours, but make sure your reps and your managers are doing the same as well. With that, I'm going to hand over to Marty, who's going to take us through our second tip, which is also super important, which is reinforcing customer value.
Thanks so much, Adam. I think you're absolutely spot on that as leaders, we need to be there for our employees as people first, and be able to reassure them through this time. And controlling the controllable aspects for our customer team, we're doubling down on the basics and thinking about the clear plans for our territories and our accounts, having good meetings where possible, and just supporting the reps in one-to-one and in coaching. And personally, I've observed a real sense of individual leadership in our team with our slogan of "In it together" and "In it with our customers." So my name is Martin, and I lead the customer business for Sales Navigator here in Asia. And many of our customers have their employees across APAC, if not around the world. And I'd like to share with you 3 tips and tactics today to help reinforce customer value within your team. Number 1 is align on the messaging, communicate it, and live it. This should be coming from leadership and should equip your reps on what to say, how to say it, and also how to respond to the different situations that your customers may be facing. Just as important, actually, is to write down and share what not to say and what not to do. This could potentially take them off message or create an undesired reaction from a customer. So as leaders, we think about using the language in our team meetings and in the situational coaching. When we started, we saw a huge hesitancy from our team from wanting to be perceived as salesy or opportunistic while customers were suffering. And thankfully, we came together as a global leadership team, and with the help of our amazing sales readiness team, acted fast and helped with global guidance and talking points so that we know or are equipped with the language to try and add value to our customers. A pro tip to this point is to remember to be human and lead with compassion. We're all there to see how we can help our customers, even whether it's outside of just the product or service that we offer. Number 2 is reach out and just do that with care and value at the forefront. Everyone on our team really does want to help the customers we service. And once we felt we had the language to match, it was time to act. And the group came together for a LinkedIn Cares calling hour where we pulled together the relationship managers and the customer success managers with a list of contacts, and we spent an hour and a half just reaching out to folks that we've worked with in the past to see how they're feeling and how they're managing through this process. But we also wanted to deliver something tangible to them. So we had a follow-up email of resources with 3 main resources, which we can make sure that you guys can have access to. Number 1 was Bain & Company's article on the coronavirus action plan for B2B sales. A lot of really great tips in there. Number 2 is a set of 16 free LinkedIn learning courses on remote work and setting yourself and your teams up for success. Really helpful for us as a group as well. And the 3rd was actually a LinkedIn article written by our VP of product on staying informed and connected and additional resources to help navigate work in this time of coronavirus. And so the pro tip here is that we actually learned that customers weren't maybe expecting this type of reach out. So for our effort this week, we'll actually be emailing and sending messages through LinkedIn to let them know that we'll be reaching out and offering some help and some free resources. The 3rd is to listen versus push what you have to offer. And listening is so important in this time because it can help your reps establish exactly what mode your customers are in. This is crucial so that your reps know how to act and respond and are guided on how to add value to those customers. The modes that we've identified are the flight mode, in which maybe a business is cutting budgets or even potentially cutting staff. And the approach would be, let me help find some resources to help your business. The 2nd mode is freeze. Are they still unclear what to do? And a role that our reps can play or your reps can play is help them understand what other companies are doing in this time. And the 3rd mode is that they're facing it, that they're tackling these challenges head on. And if your product or service actually supports those initiatives, show them how you can help execute those initiatives well. So in summary, pretty straightforward. Number one is have leadership align on the messaging and live that messaging. Number two, make sure you're reaching out and checking in with people. And three is always remember to listen versus push the product that you have. So in closing, this is a moment to seize to help build those relationships or strengthen those relationships, not only with your most strategic accounts or the accounts that you've had for long-standing times, but anybody that you've done business with. And so it's something that's all in the back of our minds and that the Bain & Company article highlights, which is to reset expectations with your customers, be available to them, and where it makes sense, give your reps the permission to sell to those customers in the face-it mode. And on the topic of strategizing ways to secure revenue, I'd love to pass it over to our head of acquisition, Gianna Barbosa.
Excellent. Thank you, Marty. Well, yes. So I'm Gianna. I head the new business team for Asia. And yeah, securing revenue is on my plate. It's something that we need to now be very agile on how we will bring new businesses to LinkedIn. And one thing that we believe in our team, we were practicing before, but now even more, is really the power of having a multifunctional task force when we're working now, right? So securing revenue now should not be only owned by sales, but should be a shared ownership across different partners within the company, marketing, sales development, insights, all the partners that you may have in your company that can help you to focus way more on which opportunities and which clients to double down right now. So we will speak a little bit about that concept. I'll just share some tips before you have that team together. So let's say that you're partnering with your sales team and sales development and marketing, right? Those are all people that in some way they have contact with clients. So they're client facing. One thing that we all need to be better now is sophisticating our discovery. It's not really sophisticated, but it's adapting it. So before, I'm sure that most people would be coached on making questions such as, oh, what is your strategic plan for the next 1 to 3 years? What are your business objectives for the next 12 months? Those are great questions, but they are just irrelevant right now. So you as a sales leader, you should work with your team and your functional partners on what are the topics that are relevant to include in a discovery framework right now. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, get closer to trends. So across your company, you have different departments that will have access to different sets of data, right? And they are all very useful right now. So for example, one thing that I am working with my marketing team and my sales development team is to understand, all right, within our own inbound leads, are we receiving different leads or flow of leads from a different country or from a different industry? Is there any trend there that can help us to understand which parts of our businesses and what parts of our customers, which segments are seeking demand more and are looking for us to support them? That will help us to understand where we can really add more value. All right. So once you invested on discovery and you utilize all types of data that you can get from your functional partners, you then can have this wing room. And the format, you can decide the way that you prefer. In our team, we meet every 2 weeks because daily communication is happening, but formally we meet there. And one of the few things that we did is with that shared knowledge, everyone needed to come, all the sales reps, with their cleaned pipeline and their refreshed set of top 40 accounts. So accounts that we really believe that can benefit from LinkedIn right now based on all this feedback. When we presented that to the cross-functional team, everyone had the opportunity to share their feedback or to share insights or share what they have heard in the market. With that exercise, we were able to really keep our pipeline very dynamic and very honest. So we are sure that right now we are focusing on customers that will benefit from what we offer in Sales Navigator, that is sales technology. So how to reach out to your business partners at this moment in order to be able to keep continuing with your business in the next months. So I hope this is useful for you. So number one, invest on adapting your discovery. Number two, get closer to the trends. What are the sets of information that you have in your company that you can use to direct you to the focus of your next opportunities? And three, audit your pipeline. Make it very honest. Help everyone to clean it and define a set of accounts that really you can add value right now. With that, I'll pass to Marty, you again, if you can share with us a little bit about the sales technology part, please.
Absolutely. And considering the environment in which we're coming together today, it's no big secret that technology has become such an indispensable part of our ability to sell and our sales activity. And it's now more important than ever for how we communicate and collaborate internally as a group, as well as how we do work and engage with our customers. So I would say for all sales leaders, it is that critical moment to, for one, build a virtual community within your team, and to invest in training your people so that they can adapt and they can be successful in running their sales process. And the Bain & Company article that we referenced makes a few points that I'll just share, and then I'll share with you 3 areas where we as sales leaders in LinkedIn are leaning in. Number 1 from Bain & Co. is equip your sales team with the technology to sell remote. You need everything from the equipment to the Wi-Fi as well as the applications. 2, arm your sales team with a perfect virtual pitch. The things that we used to be able to do in person, we can't really do because we're not able to go out there and meet them. So think about how a virtual pitch will land with a customer. 3 is use what you've learned to reprioritize your team's digital roadmap. Maybe there's that interesting tool that one team was looking at and sampling, but didn't really think would have a broader reach in your organization. It's time to make those hard decisions and think about what that roadmap looks like. And then I think most importantly for anybody that is out there selling today is you've got to accelerate the shift from a field sales model to the inside or digital sales model. And so the 3 areas that we're leaning in on as leaders is number 1 is leading by example. The tools that we use, we want to be consistent in. And so we're setting the norms for how we want our employees to use tools. If we think about VC, for example, and this comes down to just VC etiquette, right? And how we want to show up when we're showing up for customers, because the camera is always on. There's sound to think about and can really help build a professional presence for them. And as well as our old friend, the CRM. It was always been a staple of our business, but now more than ever, it's become the centerpiece for the story of what's happening in our business, allows us to forecast more accurately and coach for performance in that regard. And so leading by example. 2 is build the guidebook of resources and do that collectively. Everything from prospecting activity to the productivity aspect, communicating internally, externally, and manager and rep coaching. And there's a multitude of platforms out there that can simply make us better. So we need to assume that the team gets on board and knows how to use them. A pro tip for that is find those individual contributor leaders on the team who already use those tools effectively and turn them into advocates and help create a operational excellence shared resource so that everyone has the ability to get up to speed. 3 is around the digital roadmap, which is evaluate those high ROI tech solutions and make the decisions. So personally, I'm partial to Sales Navigator for activities like prospecting, staying in tune with customers, tracking your contacts and your accounts. But some other tools to take a look at that we've used across the years are something like SendBloom, which can be used for sequential and follow-up touch points via email, or Phrase Express, for quick keys and typing and messaging when you're doing a lot of prospecting and messaging. I think certainly a Teams form of channel of communication outside of email, such as Microsoft Teams, Slack, or even WhatsApp, has become a critical part of how we support one another, how we root each other on, how we share wins, how we stay in sync with one another. A third one is don't forget to keep it fun and engaging. If you've ever used something like Kahoot, you can create a quiz that people can participate in. And most recently for our planning day, we used something called Mentimeter, where it can create a word cloud of people's responses to a fun question or something like that. And then as a manager, you want to be able to be there for your reps. A tool like Gong.io, I think, has changed the game when it comes to how to leverage AI and large sets of data to really empower you as a manager to coach your reps on their call, like what's working, what's not working. So think about those things. And ultimately, we all know that technology won't solve everything for us, but right now it's so important to decide on the roadmap for your organization and train the team so that you can keep your people productive.
Thanks, Marty. Digital technology is really the defining mega trend of our generation. And I think it really helps also to facilitate the three preceding tips that we discussed today, especially in today's current environment where pretty much every person around the world is working remotely. Look, businesses are facing unprecedented challenges. Adapting your sales strategy to respond to the unfolding situation is going to be critical to maintain market share and come out the other side of this in the best possible position. In my view, sales leaders need to be proactive in this environment and adopt offensive moves as well as the more customary defensive moves. And hopefully the 4 tips we've discussed today will help provide some ideas that you can employ as you craft your own leadership plan during this period. If you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A chat panel and we'll endeavour to get to some of those. If we can't get to all of them, don't worry, we will respond to all of them in writing. I will remind you as well that the second webinar in this series, Modern Selling to Maximize Sales Productivity, to be held on the 23rd of April, is coming up soon, and you can click on the link in the resources to sign up for that one. So let's take a look at a couple of these questions that are coming through now. The first one is, could you share more about how you transition field sales reps into inside sales reps? Really good question. And I think probably, Gianna, you might be best placed to answer this one.
All right. So field sales reps into inside sales reps. Yeah, well, everything now is inside sales, right? So everyone needs to work remotely. There is no face-to-face going on. So with my team, right, one of the key things that we really embraced, it's kind of our bread and butter. I mean, we are on LinkedIn, so we use Sales Navigator all the time. But since we are not meeting clients face-to-face, we really made sure to be even more conscious about the time that we are spending online, engaging on social selling, meaning that is looking at our clients, looking at what they're publishing, engaging with their content, and also creating our own content, right? So what can we offer right now? What are the types of tips or recommendations that we can provide clients and make ourselves present and top of mind despite not meeting them face to face? A second thing is really rethink how you run your meetings, and especially if your company, for everyone in the audience, right? If your company is engaged on products or services in which you need to do a demo in your pitch, if you're doing an online demo, I would really encourage that you reduce the time of the demo. So what we did in our team is that when you're meeting face-to-face, we can open Sales Navigator, have a discussion, ask for feedback from the client. Because it's VC, we actually reduced our demo like almost to a third of the time. So we can spend more time with discovery with the client and really capture their attention on the sales navigator, on the parts that are most impactful for them. And we need to look at the metrics, right? So I am sure that many of the companies that are here in the webinar now, they probably measure activities of their teams with number of meetings. So you need to rethink right now on your sales process, what are the metrics that will help your business the most and that your sales reps will still feel that they are meaningful, right? So for us, for my team, we are tracking way more, even like what is the time that we're spending on Sales Navigator. So how many new people are reaching out to using the tool, because that is the most important thing for us to do right now. I hope that is helpful.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, next question is, can you expand more on how you protect the base? Marty, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I think it's the topic that is most on my mind, and I think even with the reps, who are managing an existing book of business. Look, I think first and foremost is to, one, understand your base, right? Who are your customers? And start to think about the potential industries that may be most affected, and start to really understand or think about, what does protection mean? I mean, I think a lot of companies are affected in certain ways, so a lot of businesses are going to be impacted. So really understanding and quantifying like what it is that's going on in your customer base. Number two, I think, is really nailing down the value, right? I think there's a direct correlation to thinking about how to be valuable to your customers now as it pertains to securing revenue and customers in the future, right? And I mentioned earlier, one, you want to give your teams permission to sell, especially when it makes sense. You want to give them those reassurances, but you want to do so in such a thoughtful way where after you've really understood what mode your customer is, whether they are absolutely in crisis and flight mode, or whether they are still trying to figure out what to do, or if they're tackling those challenges. I think by listening and understanding that of the customer so that you can deliver value has a direct correlation to protecting the base in the near term and in the long term. So I think just being measured about it and coaching and guiding your reps in those specific situations.
Okay, so look, I think we have time for one more question, and then, as I said, if we don't get to your question on the call, on the webinar, then we will answer it in the chat panel itself. So last question here is, what are some of the ways LinkedIn's clients are using Sales Navigator to manage through this period? Okay, well, I'm happy to take that one. I've been on a lot of calls recently with some of our clients, really trying to get a touch point into understanding what they're facing and how they're dealing with things as well. So I think firstly, it's interesting to see what our data tells us as well around the usage of LinkedIn.com, but also Sales Navigator platform. And both data points are telling us that week on week, the usage is increasing. And so what that tells us is that as people are working remotely and they're not able to be having face-to-face meetings, is they're relying more on LinkedIn and on Sales Navigator to maintain and cultivate relationships in their customer base. I know one of the ways that clients are using it is also as not just from a social selling perspective, as selling right now for a lot of organizations is not necessarily something they can do, and so they're really using it from a social outreach and engagement perspective with existing customers. So that might include things like checking in with them, liking and relating to content that's shared, sharing their own content and insights, thought leadership. Also importantly is really watching for job changes and movements. So there is going to be a lot of movement through this period, and I think that if a mobilizer or a champion of yours moves organizations, then you're able to identify those movements. And similarly, in preparing for that, multi-threading into your organization or your client base, particularly up the channel, if you can get into the C-suite, decisions are going to be made higher up the chain, I think, particularly budget decisions. So if you can multi-thread into those expanded buying committees, I think it's going to be really important. There are clients that are taking advantage of the situation that do see growth opportunities or opportunity to expand market share at the moment. And so certainly leveraging Sales Navigator from a prospecting, more of a traditional use case for that one. Setting up VC calls, identifying companies that are in growth mode and opportunities in that respect. And also collaborating within teams as well. So within your own teams, I think that, with account teams working remotely, the ability to share lead lists and account lists and work on account strategy together between acquisition teams, customer relationship and customer success teams and so forth is really valuable. And I suppose lastly, is for sales managers. I mean, you're not on the floor with your sales reps anymore. And I know that a lot of sales leaders are leveraging the report functionality and to look at usage stats of Sales Navigator to make sure reps are still maintaining that activity level and outreach and engagement with customers. And the fact that also syncs in with their CRM means that activity is being easily captured and recorded as well, which is great. So that's a couple of the ways that I know some of our clients in different modes are leveraging Sales Navigator during this period. So look, thank you so much for joining us today. That's all the time we have for questions right at the moment. We will answer all of them. Please join us on our next webinar on the 23rd of April, Modern Selling to Maximize Sales Productivity. The details to sign up is in the resources, so please do. Again, thank you for joining us. We wish you all the best through this period and take care. Thanks very much, guys.